Level 1. Grandson, you're 20, you make $11.40 an hour at a parts counter, and tonight you're entering an illegal street race in your grandmother's Corolla and in Saka. 12 years, the man laughing hardest will sign every car he owns over to you and walk home. Beige. 1 hubcap. A pine tree on the mirror that stopped smelling before you had a license. You told her you needed groceries. They're in the trunk. Metro Air Parkway, 11 at night. 60 cars, no streetlights, people down both sides. The laughing starts before you've stopped rolling. Marcus owns the fastest car out here. He leans in your window, moves your grandmother's air freshener like it offends him, and says it loud enough for all of them. Just get home safe. You can't even be mad. That's the design. 4 cars line up. Half a mile, one long bend at the end. Nobody knows the county repaved that bend last spring and left a seam across it. You do, you open a store on this road 6 nights a week. Everybody lifts off the gas for it. You don't. The Corolla finishes second. Marcus, delighted, hands you the sentence that cost you your 20s. Horsepower wins races, kid. Imagine what you could do in a real car. Tonight, nobody knows why a Corolla finished second, including you. Level 2. Outcast racer. The address is still on the back of your hand 4 days later, half washed off. Tino wrote it there in Sharpie the night of the Corolla. 50-something, tow truck, runs the grudge nights on Metro Air Parkway, hands out addresses to the ones he thinks will come back. You come back. It takes most of a year because first you have to go buy a real car. $500 is 6 weeks of shifts after rent, and what it buys you is a 95 Civic hatchback with a blown motor, a bent hood, and no back seat, because somebody took it out before you got there, and the seller won't say why. You push it into your grandmother's driveway on a Sunday. It does not start for 5 months. Here's what nobody tells you about building a car. You buy an intake before you buy a compression tester. You watch other men's hands on a phone screen at 2 in the morning until you can recite a torque spec for a bolt you've never touched. Every guy at your counter tells you to LS swap it. The actual sport is lying on cold concrete at 1 in the morning looking for one dropped bolt with a flashlight in your teeth, while your grandmother Ruth, 73, leaves the garage light on and never asks when you're coming inside. $900 for a B16 out of a wrecked Del Sol. 7 more weeks of shifts. Then it runs. Then you lose 3 races in a row. Badly. And this is worse than the Corolla because in the Corolla you had a reason. The best reason anybody's ever had. Now you're a guy in a Honda losing to guys in Hondas, and it cost you 4 months of your life in 8-hour blocks. Marcus doesn't even get out of his car for it. He rolls the window down 4 inches. Congratulations, he says. You bought a slower car. That's when the name starts. Not a nickname, a punchline. Somebody says, hey, it's Corolla, and 40 people laugh, and it sticks the way true things stick. 4th race. 41 degrees, which matters, though nobody out there is thinking about it except you. You're staged next to a black Prelude on tires so new they still have the little rubber hairs on them, and he's told 3 people about those tires in the last 20 minutes. New tires don't grip. They have to be scrubbed in first. Nobody teaches you that. You learn it from a $40 book, so you don't launch hard. The flashlight drops. You launch late deliberately, embarrassingly late, like a man who missed his cue and let him put everything he has onto a cold surface. And he spins himself stupid for 60 feet while you just leave. 2 car lengths at the line. Nobody claps. 15 phones come up, and they stay up, and that's a different sound than laughing, and you'll hear it in your sleep for a week. A woman in her 60s has been at the end of the line all night with her arms folded. Vera Osi runs a transmission shop off Power In. She doesn't offer to teach you anything. Everybody out here is shopping, she says. You're the only one paying attention. Then walking away, about nobody in particular. Every man I ever knew who started collecting cars ended up owned by the garage. You don't know what that means yet. You write down her address anyway. The guy in the Prelude wants it back. Not for money. For slips. Title for title. Winner drives both home. You say yes before you remember that your Civic doesn't have a title. It has a bill of sale, written on a napkin in a language somewhere between English and hopeful. Level 3. Rookie racer. At 1 in the morning in a Circle K lot, a grown man is screaming at you that you can't take a car you can't register, and he is completely right, and you take it anyway. That's how you learn what a title actually is. A piece of paper the size of a check with a watermark that lives in a glove box or a shoebox under a bed. A napkin is not one. The napkin never comes up. Winners don't get asked what they'd have signed over, and you don't sit with that answer for another 6 years. You drive both cars home by making 2 trips. That's the whole picture. 2 in the morning, walking 4 miles back down Fruitridge to get the other one, alone, having just one. The second slip is a clean 97 Integra GZR, and for 8 days you are the smartest man in Sacramento County. Then the DMV tells you there's $14,200 still owed on it to a credit union in Roseville. You didn't win a car. You won a payment book. Nobody explains liens to you. Every one of them learned it the same way, at a counter with a number in their hand, and a solidarity in letting the next guy find out. So you start doing the least glamorous thing in the entire sport, homework. You learn to read a car before you agree to race it. Uneven wear across one shoulder means a bent knuckle nobody's admitting to. A man who backs into every space he's ever parked in thinks about leaving. You stop racing cars. You start racing owners. 4 cars in 6 weeks. A 240 SX, a Mustang GT with a hole in the exhaust the size of a fist. And on a Saturday morning, Ruth comes out in a housecoat and makes coffee for 6 men she has never met. In her own driveway, because that is what her house is now. She doesn't ask where the cars came from. She just starts buying the bigger can. You started showing up at Vera's shop on Tuesdays with coffee nobody asked for. She never taught you anything and never told you to leave. After 4 months, that was an arrangement. When you tell her the count, she doesn't congratulate you. She's got a transmission apart on a bench and she doesn't look up from it. The ones who get old out here don't keep the cars, she says. Keeping is how they find you. Every man I knew who built a collection ended up in a room somewhere explaining it. You hear it. You don't do anything about it. You're 21 and you have 4 cars. Then a guy named Dev offers you double or nothing. His slip against the beige Corolla in the back of the garage. A nothing wager, the kind you throw out to see if somebody bites. You say no so fast it embarrasses both of you. That's the first time you understand it isn't a car. Then there's Petey. Petey runs a black S13 with a coilover setup he paid somebody to install, and he loses it to you clean in front of 30 people. He shakes your hand. He signs the title on the trunk lid. He rides home in an Uber. And on Monday morning, he walks into a substation on Florin Road and reports the car stolen. By Wednesday, there is a file in Sacramento County with a gray Civic hatchback in it, and a partial plate, and a description of a driver they don't have a name for yet. Level 4, pink slip racer. The deputy at the Arco on Franklin doesn't ask for your license. He asks whose car it is, and you hear it in the flatness that's not a question. That's a man checking a description he already read in a bulletin. You repaint that weekend. Primer gray to black in Vera's back lot, rattle cans, and a garden hose. 2 weeks later, a CHP unit picks you out of 4 cars at a light on Power Inn. Vera doesn't even seem surprised. She's wiping her hands on a rag that hasn't been cleaned since the 90s. They're not looking at the color, she says. They're looking at how it sits. So you learn the actual trade, and it has nothing to do with speed, ride height, wheel offset, a stock bumper on a car that is not stock anywhere else, a roof rack on a hunted car because no cop ever pulled over a Honda that looks like it goes camping. You start owning 2 cars. One you race, one you're seen in. So the races leave the city. 11 miles of 2-lane above Placerville. No streetlights, no cross-traffic, nearest substation 40 minutes down the grade. Nobody out here has ever raced a corner. These are drag guys. They build for a light and a straight line, and the first time they meet a decreasing radius left with 200 feet of nothing on the outside. Half of them lift and spend the night explaining why they didn't. You've driven this road twice. At the speed limit. On a Sunday. 3rd corner is where you get him. He carries more speed in, and you let him, because 40 feet before the apex the pavement changes color where the county laid new asphalt against old. And cold old asphalt does not do what new does. He finds that out mid-corner. You never pass him. He just stops being in front of you. That's the night you win the Supra. 3 cars at your grandmother's house is a neighbor complaint, so the garage becomes a shipping container in an orchard outside Elk Grove. $200 a month and a bottle of something at Christmas. You are 23 years old. You own 14 cars. You sleep in a room in your grandmother's house. They take the Supra on a Tuesday. Modified exhaust, no front plate, a citation, the kind of thing that ruins a day. Except the release is $1,900 plus $140 a day while you find it. You sell a car you won to get back a car you won. And because of Petey, you start doing the single least glamorous thing anybody in this world has ever done. Every slip you win goes to a check-cashing place on Stockton Boulevard the next morning to get notarized. $40 a pop. A woman named Doreen who calls you Han and never asks. And the copies go in a 2-drawer filing cabinet in your grandmother's laundry room, next to the detergent. The scene thinks it's the funniest thing they've heard. A street racer with a filing cabinet. You do it anyway. Then you beat a name. Not Marcus. Marcus doesn't race. He pays a kid from Elk Grove to race, in a car he bought, on a bet he funded. And when you take that car at the line, he's 400 feet away with his arms crossed, and he does not walk over. 2 days later, the title comes back to your grandmother's house by certified mail. He bought it off you at 40% over value, no call, no meeting, no words, because a car of his sitting in your driveway is a thing he cannot allow to exist. And then the notary talks. Inside a week, the whole city knows that the man whose entire personality is horsepower wins races paid $91,000 to unlose a race he didn't even drive in. Let me say one thing and then I will not bring it up again. A lot of you asked how I make this style of YouTube videos, so I gathered all my tactics for starting a channel like mine in this guide. If you want it, the link's below. Now let's get back to the video. Level 5. Underground Icon. 39 cars won in 4 years, he's saying, and not one of them bought. West Sacramento, a Friday, a warehouse lot. 20 people standing in a circle, and Marcus in the middle of it doing your arithmetic out loud at a volume chosen to carry. He's not racing you, he says. He's liquidating you, one signature at a time. And the terrible part is that he's right. Everybody hears it. And in one sentence, he makes you the villain and the legend of Northern California, at once a trick you'd never have thought him capable of. You are broke, not struggling broke, in the stupid way of a man who owns $2 million of automobiles and cannot cover an $800 radiator without selling one. Cars aren't money. Cars are money that takes 4 months and a stranger's willingness. And your cars are worth less than everybody else's identical cars? Because a car with your name on it comes with a story the buyer has to explain to his wife, his insurer, and eventually a deputy. A clean 0 to 6 moves in a week. Yours sits 4 months and goes $7,000 under book. The R34 comes off a highway pull, the only racing that still finds you. 2 in the morning on 99 south of Elk Grove, both of you doing 70 in the right lane like citizens. A doctor from San Jose with $200,000 of imported Skyline and a habit of telling people what it cost. He flashes. You go. A roll race is supposed to be pure. No launch, no luck, just power against power. It isn't. He shifts where the internet told him to instead of where the car makes power, and he hands you 2/10 every time he pulls the lever. You take him by a car at the Grant Line overpass and lift before the next camera. For about a month, it is the best thing that has ever happened to you. People drive 4 hours to look at it. A kid asks for a picture with the car. He doesn't ask for one with you, and you notice that you noticed. That's the whole problem in one line. Then your grandmother stops driving. There's no crisis. Nobody calls you from a hospital. She hands you the keys on a Sunday in the kitchen, says the freeway got loud, and goes back to what she was doing. You put the Corolla in a climate-controlled unit on Florin Road. $89 a month. You park it next to an R34 that cost $200,000 and 12 other cars that no company in California will insure. The Civic is in the container at Elk Grove under a cover with a motor you built twice. You'll never sell it. You'll never drive it again either. The Corolla is the only car in that building with no file on it, no photo, no partial plate, no report. It's the cleanest car you own and you can't drive it because driving it is how it stops being clean. You check on the beige one first, every time. Vera has never complimented you and does not start now. She's got a transmission apart on a bench, third one that week, and says the thing that becomes your religion without looking up. Power is what you buy. Traction is what you earn. She sets a bearing down. Every man out here is buying. So every man out here is one cold night away from being ordinary. Marcus's real move isn't a race. It was never going to be a race. He goes to the 4 biggest names in Northern California men with sponsors and shops and something to lose and offers to cover their losses. In cash, if they stop taking your races. 3 say yes inside a week. You find out because the 4th one calls you. Not to warn you, to apologize. He says he has a kid starting kindergarten. He says it twice, which is once more than a man says a true thing. Level 6, blacklisted racer. 9 weeks, not one race. Not because you lost. You show up Friday, and the road is full 60, 70 cars, people you've known since you were 21, and every one of them suddenly has a reason. A clutch that's going. A wedding Saturday. A car that's just not ready. 100 people watching you not get a race is louder than 100 people laughing at a Corolla. You'd forgotten there was a worse version. You drive home at the speed limit. Modesto, 3 weeks later, a drunk kid with a built STWOTHOUSAND tries to insult you across a gas station lot. "You'd lose in my car!" And you say okay, not as a comeback. You say it the way a man answers a question he's been asking since he was 20, in a beige Corolla, with groceries in the trunk. You get into a car you've never sat in, at night, on a road you've seen twice, and beat its owner in it by a car length. Somebody films it. That clip does something for you that 6 years of winning in your own car never did. Because anyone can believe a fast car. Nobody can explain that. So that becomes the business. Blacklisted at home, you invent a market that didn't exist. You'll drive anything anybody hands you against them or take their car while they take yours. Either way, tonight. For whatever's in the envelope. Fresno, Bakersfield, Reno, Portland, because Northern California is closed and isn't opening. Then Phoenix, Vegas, Houston, Atlanta, 4,000 miles in 6 weeks in a tundra pulling a 20-foot trailer, sleeping in $49 motels where the ice machine is on the wrong floor. And on the first of every month, from a parking lot in a city you can't name without checking the sign, you pay $89 for a unit on Florin Road holding a beige Corolla you haven't seen in 7 months. Rent gets late twice that year. That doesn't. Bakersfield is where it goes wrong because Bakersfield is where you get lazy. 600 people, a crowd chanting, a fox body you like the look of, and you get in without doing the thing you always do. It starves for fuel at the top of third a slosh, 40 years of somebody else's neglect all at once, and you lose in front of every one of them. The clip of that travels twice as fast as any clip of you winning. It always does. So you build the ritual, and the ritual is not glamorous. 20 minutes with a car before you'll touch the key, date codes on the tires, brake bias by feel rolling at 4 feet. How much fuel is actually in it, not how much he says. Whether the seat bolts are tight. Somewhere in there you stop being a racer. You become an inspector who happens to be fast. You take the rematch 4 weeks later in the same fox body, 15 gallons in it instead of 3, and win by 3 lengths. You miss your grandmother's 80th birthday because you're in Reno. She leaves a voicemail. It's 90% silence. She's not good at machines and doesn't know when it's recording, so mostly it's a kitchen. You keep it. You don't call back for 6 days, because you can't explain a Tuesday in Reno to a woman who thinks you sell alternators. Las Vegas. A run set up by text on an industrial road, announced 40 minutes ahead to 6 people. The helicopter is up in under 4 minutes. 2 units are already parked at the north end when the cars roll in, which means they were there first. You get out clean, on foot, through a fence. The car doesn't. Metro impounds the Mustang you were sitting in, one you took for slips outside Atlanta 8 months earlier, back when anybody out of state would still put a title up against you. They run the VIN. It comes back stolen, reported by the man who signed it over to you himself. Level 7. America's Most Wanted. Marcus made the call that made you. You'll think about it for the rest of your life. He picked up a phone to get you arrested in Nevada and handed a federal building your career instead. Gift-trapped. 1 car on a stolen report crossing a state line pulls a thread. Behind it are 6 years of sore losers doing what Petey did, signing a title on a trunk lid Friday, walking into a substation Monday. 31 reports. 9 states. Interstate transport stops being a traffic problem and becomes a career. A multi-agency task force stands up in Sacramento with a dozen people on it. Some agent with a sense of humor names the case file after the handle a parking lot gave you at 21. Corolla. You are the most famous driver in America and cannot use 1 inch of it. Burner phones on a 2-week rotation. Never the same motel twice. You can't be in a photograph, can't be tagged, can't stand near a phone that's up while men make a living selling shirts with your name on them, and you eat a gas station sandwich in Amarillo. You have not said your own name out loud in 14 months. The chases stop being chases and become math. Outside Houston, the helicopter up before the cars are staged, which means somebody made a call. So you don't run the race. You run the exit. 90 seconds of frontage road at the limit, lights off. The bird holding 200 feet up and half a mile back because that's what a thermal camera needs. And you know what it needs. Then the truck stop. You slot into a row of 40 parked cars, kill it, walk inside, and buy a coffee you don't want. The bird makes 4 passes. Units come through the lot twice. A hot engine looks like a hot engine, and there are a dozen of those in that row. You drink it for 50 minutes and pull out behind a Peterbilt at the speed limit. After that, you stop running at all. You start losing on purpose in the first 100 feet, and it costs you a car in Atlanta, and you let it go. Then the gray Malibu. 2 men in it. 4 houses down from your grandmother's driveway. It's there Tuesday. It's there again Sunday. You sit 6 blocks away in a rented Camry and look at her porch light through a windshield. You don't turn down the street. You will not turn down that street for 2 years. 12 years ago, a man leaned into a beige Corolla with groceries in the trunk and told you, in front of 40 people, in the warmest voice he had, just get home safe. You'd give every car you own. You move the Corolla at 4 in the morning in a rented U-Haul trailer out of Florin Road into a barn in Wilton owned by a man who thinks you're storing furniture. Most careful thing you have ever done. It's titled to Ruth Palmer, at the address the federal file lists as your last known. The only threat on their board with a real name at the end of it. Then you do the oldest test there is. Somebody has venues before venues exist, and exactly 9 people alive have that access. So you give 9 people 9 different locations. One night, 8 of them are quiet. The one you gave Marcus's tire guy puts 40 units, 2 helicopters, and a mobile command post on a gravel lot in Stockton at 1 in the morning. Sitting in the dark 2 hours for a race that was never happening, while a kid drones the whole thing. It's on the internet by breakfast. The city turns on him in a week. The man whose entire identity is horsepower wins races is now on video in 4K, a man who calls the police because he's afraid of a Honda. He goes on a local news segment to get ahead of it, and a reporter asks him where this ends. He won't stop, Marcus says. Men like him never give anything back. That's the whole disease. 4 days later, he offers you a race, publicly, on his terms. The biggest pot anybody has ever put on a road in this country. Because a win is the only thing that erases it. Level 8. King of the Streets. The biggest illegal race in American history begins the way a house sale begins. A lawyer in a strip mall next to a nail salon. A printer that jams twice. A notary who asks nothing because she's paid not to. Every title Marcus holds against every title you hold. 11 cars, $41 million insured, including a 12-year-old R35 he has never once offered to sell anybody. Winner takes the lot. Loser walks home. 1 clause added at the bottom in his own handwriting, initialed. The beige Toyota goes in the pot. He wants the joke. He's wanted it 12 years. It's the only thing he has ever actually beaten. Horsepower wins races, he says at that table, the way other men say grace. It's the only honest thing out here. Then he picks the venue and the format, and you let him, and that is the entire race. He picks Metro Air Parkway, half a mile from a dead stop, because he has 1,800 horsepower in a twin-turbo Huracan, and doesn't want to win, he wants to be seen winning, in front of everyone who watched that drone video. So you offer him a roll race. Both cars settled, pure power, no launch, no luck. The only honest thing out here by his own definition an hour ago. He turns it down in front of 6 witnesses. Nobody films that part. What they film is the rest. 2,000 texts, 3 fake locations, a shutdown crew of 14 cars, radios on the overpass, 4,000 people who found out anyway, and a 40-minute argument in a Chevron lot over who holds the titles close enough to knives that the race nearly dies 6 minutes out. It's settled by Tino. 58, tow truck, the man who wrote an address on the back of your hand when you were 20. He puts the envelope in his glove box, locks the truck, and stands in front of it. Both men trust him. Nobody else out there does. 41 degrees. You're in the Supra, 1,200 horsepower against his 1,800. Every man out there does that math out loud before you've staged. Old concrete. Never prepped, never swept, never rubbered in. The same road you've driven 6 nights a week since you were 19 first for $11.40 an hour, later for everything you own. Marcus has never launched on cold public concrete in his life. He's never had to. Money has always bought him a prep surface and a man to sweep it. 12 years ago, you finished second on this road because you were the only one who knew what it did. Nothing has changed except who's next to you. The flashlight drops. He lights them up. 1,800 horsepower becomes smoke and noise and 200 feet of a very expensive car going sideways while a man makes a correction he has never once had to make. You don't outdrive him. You just leave. Half a mile isn't long enough to buy back what he gave away in the first second. The last thing in your mirror is one of the fastest cars in America hooking up with nowhere to go. 13.6 seconds. The units come in from the north while you're still slowing, and Tino is across the lane with his hazards on, and he does not move the truck. That is the only reason it finishes. He goes down on the asphalt with his hands laced behind his head, 60 feet from where he first told you where the races were, while you drive off with $41 million in titles beside you. You sell your own Supra that month to pay his attorney. He takes 11 months. You don't touch the 11. Sunrise. An industrial lot off Bayou Way. 11 cars in a row that belong to you and one beige Corolla that belongs to your grandmother. And the only thought in your head standing there is that there is nobody left in this country who will ever race you again. Level 9. Retired racing legend. 4,000 people and $41 million changing hands on a public road is not something a dozen federal employees get to sit on. Indict or fold. So after 4 years of helicopters, they do the boring thing and subpoena every transfer with your name on it. The case dies in a conference room in 19 minutes. 31 stolen vehicle reports. 31 notarized transfers with the complainant's own signatures on them, stamped by a woman named Doreen who called you Han for 8 years and never asked. The most wanted driver in America is saved by a 2-drawer filing cabinet in a laundry room, next to the detergent. Nobody makes a documentary about that part. You're 32 and you wake at 4 in the afternoon out of 12 years of habit, with nothing to be awake for. You own the fastest cars in this country and can't drive one to a Chevron without a phone coming up. Every offer now is a sponsorship, a podcast, a man in a nice jacket explaining your childhood back to you. You are worth more as a story than you ever were as a driver. That is the first thing in 12 years that has genuinely scared you. So you give them back, all 11. Your lawyer sends Marcus his own notarized transfers, 1 per car, and the underground loses its mind because nobody in this thing has ever given a car back, not once. 200 people came to watch a man give $41 million back because nobody believed it until they saw it. They parked along the fence like a race. He comes to the lot to collect. He walks the line of his own cars twice, looking for the trick because there has to be one. Seriously? You hand him the keys to the R35. The car he beat a grandmother's Corolla with 12 years and 1 entire life ago. The single win his reputation was built on. Just get home safe, you say. He doesn't answer. There isn't one. He asks you the only question he has left, which is why you'd keep the beige one. And it isn't sentimental, because you don't do sentimental. It's arithmetic. Every car in this lot changed hands because somebody lost it. 11 titles, 1 cold night, 1 man who signed all of them on the hood of a tow truck. It's the only undefeated car here. Then flat. So am I. Ruth Palmer, 85. Sits in the driver's seat of her own Corolla for the first time in 6 years and adjusts a pine tree that has not smelled like anything since before you could drive. She pulls out of an industrial lot with 11 supercars parked in a row behind her. 22 and a 35. Hazard lights on for no reason either of you will ever discuss. There's a kid at the end of the fence line. 20, maybe. A cavalier with a coat hanger for an antenna and 1 headlight that sits wrong. 40 minutes ago he did something nobody noticed except you. He backed in. He looked at the surface. Then he sat on his hood and waited for the temperature to drop. You write an address on the back of his hand in Sharpie. Same way a 58-year-old tow truck driver once did it to a grandson with groceries in the trunk. He drives off thinking he got lucky. Then you follow her home and park in the driveway. In daylight. Engine off. Under a porch light that has been on for 2 years without you. And you sit down out there, at 32, with 1 beige car in the driveway, and nobody left to beat, wondering whether you just handed that kid a door or a cage, and whether anybody could have told you the difference at 20. If you like this story, subscribe and comment down below where you're watching from.